Hey everybody, welcome to Tech Talk, episode number 8, LoRa the Explorer.
Oh, that's terrible.
Sure.
It's a horrible joke.
Well, I'm trying to be punny, like a little dad joke, pun away.
I'm gonna write it down for my kids.
There you go. Yes, yeah, that should go in a nice, good old, I was going to say a book, but who reads books on dad jokes anymore? I guess
the dad base of jokes.
Oh, there you go. Yes. We need like a Instagram account for it or something, right? So we're going to be exploring. Oh, let's see what I did there. LoRaWan today. Oh boy. All right. So we better just move on. I'm Ryan Bowman. That's what my name tag says on the site. So I think that's it. And joined with Brian East, as always, part of the data team from Connectus. Thanks for tuning in this week as we discuss some of these awesome topics. So just a little bit about LoRaWan, just so you understand what it actually is, right? So LoRaWan is really a network. I would call it a network architecture, but I guess it's a protocol, really. And so it's a low power. That's the I think the actual acronym for LoRaWan is LPWA, but it's a low power wide area network protocol, right? So what that really means is it is a network, like a local network that can travel pretty far. So think of like a Wi-Fi network, except way better. And it can have a little bit more travel there. And especially on the low power side, as we talk about some of the different solutions, there's some solutions out there that can stay out there for like 10, 15 years, depending on battery life and some items like that. So think of it kind of like a blend of a cellular network, like a private cellular network, but it's not totally private. There's some security in there and all that good stuff. So
what
why
is,
this?
what would you say is the major cost differences, say, of setting up like in an agricultural environment, right? Wi-Fi versus LoRaWan.
Yeah, so and that's an awesome question, because I guess that's really when we talk about competition, right? That's really the two main components or competition features and solutions that I would say kind of compete against LoRaWan is going to be cellular and Wi-Fi, right? Like a Wi-Fi mesh network or a private cellular network or even just a standard cellular network. So the biggest difference between them is the cost of ownership for LoRaWan. There's some upfront costs as far as what you're purchasing and everything, but you don't see those monthly costs. And so that's kind of the big improvement over something from a cellular standpoint. And we'll get into the cellular component, because there's still a cellular component, but it's not at the sensor level. And then the second component to that is versus Wi-Fi is you're going to see a huge difference. So Wi-Fi runs at the 2.4 gigahertz, 2.4 and 5, right? Those are the two typical networks for Wi-Fi. So LoRaWan, what's that?
It's
the signal. Yeah. So great for traveling with data, right? 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. The higher up the spectrum we get there, the larger amounts of data it can do, right? So that's why our Wi-Fi networks, like we jump on our 5G. Not 5G cellular, but 5G or 5 gigahertz home network. That's why we want that on our Wi-Fi network. When I'm on my MacBook, I always want to be on my 5 gigahertz network because my bandwidth is huge. So that is a good distinction. LoRaWan is typically used for very low data, right? So that's the signal. And the good news about that is, the bad news is it doesn't, from a capacity and bandwidth standpoint, it's not crazy. But what it can do is it can penetrate through, concrete walls. It can travel further. So you mentioned about agriculture. Typically, those are very large deployments, right? We're talking 10, 50, 100 acres, forests, whatever, right? When we're looking at that. So you need a signal that's going to carry that low data, but you need it to carry very far. And if you notice, like if you stand up your router at home and you walk down the street, you probably won't be able to find your Wi-Fi network. And that's because while it's great at traveling large amounts of data through that network, it's not fantastic at a large spread and propagation. I try to always stay away from the word propagation because it seems like, a super science nerdy word, but it's just the definition of how far that signal travels from its source, right? So when we talk about propagation for cellular networks, we talk about the cell tower, and then how far that signal propagates from the cell tower. And that's what we're talking about with LoRaWan as well, is you're going to have a sensor and a gateway, and how further apart you can put them that they'll be able to talk.
So the
that was a really long answer, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. So the three kind of big ideas here is one, because of the lower frequency, it goes farther, and it also can penetrate stuff that the Wi-Fi signals at the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz range will not penetrate through, or will not penetrate well. Because of the low frequency, we're also dealing with less data transmission. So this wouldn't be something that you'd want to use for streaming Netflix. It's got very specific uses, right? IoT uses. And then the last piece of it that distinguishes it is that that ties into the rest, is that it's low energy. So when you've got those battery powered sensors out there, Wi-Fi sensors, they use a lot more power than a LoRaWan sensor. And they're more expensive too.
Yeah, definitely. Those are two really good points in addition to that, right? When we're talking Wi-Fi, that's a perfect explanation there. Like I have a Wi-Fi outlet in my house, but yes, they're a lot more expensive than a LoRaWan type sensor. And then what we're doing there. So let me throw this out as well. This is a pretty cool graphic I pulled off of the actual LoRaWan site, right? And kind of all starts, because obviously we're starting with a cloud server there, because obviously we need to have somewhere for that data to reside, right? So we can see that data and all of that can happen. So this is kind of a good diagram of what happens in a LoRaWan network. I had mentioned earlier that cellular plays a part here. And so as you see the different applications that are going to be sitting out here, you'll be able to see how all of this works. So again, LoRaWan is a network itself, but it doesn't connect to the internet. It talks to itself, right? So you put a sensor out there. So I'll use a real life scenario. I worked with a company that, if you don't know this, most commercial properties, manufacturing plants, college campuses, hotels, all the exit lights that sit above doorways, there's a light bulb in them. And by law, and I think across the entire United States, I could be wrong, could be state by state, but by law, there are laws out there that say the maintenance department, not necessarily the maintenance department, but the company has to go test the light bulb and confirm once a month that light bulb works. And the reason for that is if you lose power or there's a fire and if people need to exit, they need to make sure the exit light is actually lit up so they can see that. Totally makes sense. Well, a maintenance director or maintenance department doesn't absolutely love the fact that every month they have to send a human around to go push a button and be like, yep, it works, check the box, right? So this is where a sensor comes in place. You can put a sensor in there that will test that light bulb, and by just testing it, it can give a yes or no, and that would be that sensor down in the bottom left corner there. It's going to go back to a gateway, right? The gateway is the magic when we talk about cellular. Again, I mentioned there is no path for the LoRa sensor to get out to the internet. It needs internet. It needs the interwebs. That's how it's going to get to the cloud. That's how people are going to know that it was tested. And so that gateway that we work with a lot are different brand gateways that have a cellular radio in them and a LoRaWan gateway radio in them. And so what they do is they can compile all the information from that building with all those LoRaWan sensors, and it comes back to the gateway. And then, of course, that's connected through cellular. That's how it gets back to the cloud server, because the cellular connection makes that internet connection, and then you have your actionable data. So that's a huge component. The other really cool thing about LoRaWan is the sensors talk to each other. So let's say you had 5 doors on level 4 and 5 doors on level 6 and 5 doors on level 8, all your floors of your building. So if one of the sensors goes down, they don't communicate like sensor 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4. They talk to each other. So if a sensor goes down, you're not going to lose all that data flowing backwards. What you're going to see is one sensor's down and failing. And so they're going to over communicate with all of them. They're pretty chatty from that perspective. So that should give you a better idea of the communication system when it comes to that. Another good application that I've worked with is hotels, condos, and apartments. They'll put water sensors. The worst thing you could possibly think of is if you're a condo or you're renting apartments to folks, is if somebody on one floor, I don't know, let's use turns their bathtub on, it overflows. I don't know, they had an emergency, so they left and they forgot to turn the water off, right? You're talking catastrophic for that building, right? Before anyone figures out which floor, which room, where's the water coming from, that could be a nightmare. And so they'll outfit every building, every apartment, every bathroom, let's say, with a water sensor. And that will just simply give an alert when that happens. So, and as you can imagine, the amount of money that can be saved and additional renting and the damage and all of that pays for itself, because it's super convenient and just super proactive about being able to stop that emergency situation from happening. So that's LoRaWan. Let me stop sharing and get our smiling faces back here. But yeah, that's pretty much LoRaWan in a nutshell. It's a great little network that can be supplemented for our customers. It's a great little network that works in tandem with cellular, which I think is always important, right? We are cellular specialists, especially when it comes to routers. So we're always looking to complement the cellular technology and networks that are out there from the carriers. And so that's pretty awesome. I think I mentioned already, LoRaWan runs in the 868 to 923 megahertz. So that's kind of some of the specifics. So think about like LTE frequencies, and that's part of its magic. We talked about power efficiency. We talked about mesh networking, and there's lack of internet, and there's sensors that can sit out there for 10 to 15 years. So it's pretty cool. It's a really cool technology that we're seeing a lot more in the industries of being able to be used and complement the cellular side. And you can drive some of that monthly cost down, because you're now just using gateways instead of a cellular connection at each sensor, let's call it, right? So that's pretty cool. Anything else I'm missing, Brian?
No, you did a great job. You covered it.
Well, thank you. It's a neat technology, and I don't know that everyone understands, and especially the cellular gateway side of it. I don't know that everyone understands that there's some really cool players out there, manufacturers, that were able to source those devices, those routers that have the LoRaWan gateways in it, so they can talk back and forth. So I do not have any tech for the week. I bought new speakers for my laptop at home. I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm looking around to see what tech I would use.
What tech you have? As we get down the road here in a couple more episodes, we got some POT solutions, we got some out-of-band management solutions. So we got some really cool things that are happening, and some really cool tech that's going along with those as well. So we will continue to bring you tons of new, really awesome technology and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. Continue to follow us on all of our social media platforms, because they are amazing too. I mean, like, let's face it, we're probably the coolest one out there. And yeah, look for what we're doing in the communities. We love partnering with the carriers and doing community events and partnering with our customers. And so it's pretty awesome from all of that standpoint. If you have any questions, anything you guys need, any comments, anything you'd like us to cover in the videos, please send those requests in, comment in our chat there, and we'd be happy to do anything we can to provide more content for y'all. So in the meantime, have an amazing day.
Stay metal.
Stay metal. There you go. Thanks, everyone.